Advanced Residential Applications and Case Studies. Chapter 5, The Reporting Process, page 8. Check your understanding. This quiz has a total of 3 questions. There will be 1 question per page. You must achieve 65% to pass this quiz. Start quiz. Number 1. What 2 dates must be in every written property appraisal report as required by Standards Rule 2-2? A. Date of report preparation and date of assignment agreement. B. The effective date and date of report. C. Effective date and date of inspection. Or D. Date of inspection and date of report. I'm going to go B. Effective date and date of report. Number 2. Before agreeing to perform an assignment, an appraiser is required to disclose to the client any prior services that the appraiser provided regarding the subject property. A. Within the past 1 year. B. Within the past 3 years. C. Within the past 5 years. Or D. Throughout the appraiser's entire career. I can't remember this one exactly. I'm going to shoot and say past 3 years. And lastly, number 3. When an appraiser receives an assignment to appraise a complex property, it is safe to assume that the client is already aware of the property's complexity. True or false? I'm going to go false. Assignment completed. Finish. You passed. You actually got 100%. Good job. So remember, number 1, what 2 dates must be in every written real property appraisal report as required by Standards Rule 2-2? You said the effective date and the date of the report, and that was correct. Number 2, before agreeing to perform an assignment, an appraiser is required to disclose to the client any prior services that the appraiser provided regarding the subject property. You said within the past 3 years, and that was correct. Number 3, when an appraiser receives an assignment to appraise a complex property, it is safe to assume that the client is already aware of the property's complexity. True or false? You said false, and that was correct. Continue. Page 9, Form Reports. Most residential appraisers are very familiar with filling out appraisal forms. In many cases, your client will mandate the use of a particular reporting form. If you are appraising a 1 to 4 unit residential property for lending purposes, you undoubtedly will be using one of the Fannie Mae/Freddie Mac forms that are appropriate for the particular type of property. Perhaps you will use the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report, also called the URAR, or Fannie Mae 1004, Condo Form, Fannie Mae 1073, or Small Residential Income Property Appraisal Report, Fannie Mae 1025. Let's assume you are called to appraise a single unit residential property. Upon investigation, you discover it is not a typical run-of-the-mill property for its area. This particular appraisal is not intended for use in a mortgage lending transaction, but instead is intended for use by an attorney for litigation purposes. And of course, it is one of those dreaded complex properties that will tax your creativity to the limits. You mull it over carefully and decide that you are competent to proceed. You structure a scope of work that will be appropriate and gather all the essential data. Now, you face the question, how in the hell am I going to write this thing up? You should not, that's highlighted, use a URAR form. Remember that it now says right on the form on page 1 with emphasis added. The purpose of this summary appraisal report is to provide the lender/client, that's underlined, with an accurate and adequately supported opinion of the market value of the subject property. Also, it states on page 4, with underlining added for emphasis. Intended use. The intended use of this appraisal report is for the lender/client, that's underlined, to evaluate the property that is the subject of this appraisal for a mortgage finance transaction, that's underlined. Intended user. The intended user of this appraisal report is the lender/client, that's underlined. That's about as plain as it gets. You should not, that's highlighted, use this form for anything other than lending purposes. Besides, even if you could use the URAR, it would be hard to cram all the extra stuff you need into those 6 pages, even with voluminous addendum pages. The form is just meant for a very specific purpose. It even states further on page 4, modifications, additions, or deletions to the intended use, intended user, definition of market value, or assumptions and limiting conditions are not permitted. End of page. Page 10, residential reports. An alternative to the Fannie Mae/Freddie Mac forms is a form that was created by the Appraisal Institute. It is copyrighted as Form AI-100.04 and is called Appraisal Report-Residential. It was created in 2005 to fill the gap created by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Forms. It has been updated since then. It is available through all major appraisal form software companies. You probably already have it in your appraisal forms software package, so you may want to check it out the next time you have a few minutes to spare. There are 8 pages altogether, which is the primary reason we are not covering this form in this course. And there is considerable blank space to narratively input data into various sections of the report. It is a general purpose form. However, It will not work for all, that's underlined, properties, and in all, that's underlined, situations. You will note the Appraisal Institute's disclaimer at the bottom, which states, depending on the assignment, the appraiser may need to provide additional data analysis and work product not called for in this form. End of page. Page 11, the AI report. As stated on the previous page, the AI residential appraisal report form will not work in all situations. No form can possibly do that. However, the form may fill the bill for many non-lending residential purposes. On page 2, the field for intended use and intended users is blank, and you can insert whatever you want. The type of value and the effective date of value are also blank on the AI form. Conversely, on the URAR, it specifically calls for market value and even gives a specific definition of that value. Page 2 of the AI form also offers blank spaces for extraordinary assumptions and hypothetical conditions. There is also room to describe your scope of work and any significant real property appraisal assistance you may have used. The rest of the form offers good flexibility and ample space to narratively describe the market area, site, highest and best use, improvements, site valuation, and 3 approaches to value. Again, you may already have this form in your forms software program, even though you may have never seen or used it. Look in your appraisal forms software package and check it out. If the AI form is not your cup of tea, keep looking through your software package. Most, if not all, have generic forms, sometimes referred to as general purpose or GP forms, which are somewhat similar in appearance to Fannie Mae's forms. However, they do not contain the pre-printed Fannie language. As with the AI form, these general purpose forms also need to be filled in with the intended use, intended user information, as well as the type and definition of value. Of course, if you think you may not be able to fit everything you need to report in a form, perhaps a narrative report would be the best option. End of page. Page 12. Narrative reports. Commercial appraisers rarely use form reports. They typically create narrative reports. One definition of a narrative report that's highlighted is a written communication of the results of a valuation or review assignment presented to the client in narrative style rather than on a form or orally. With a narrative report, you start with a blank canvas and you are unrestricted. You can paint any type of picture you want. You are free to design whatever type of communication device you think is needed to provide credible opinions that are not misleading. Each piece of real property is unique. It deserves a unique scope of work and a unique way of passing along your opinions and conclusions. A narrative report also allows that. As a matter of fact, it encourages that. A lot of residential appraisers are daunted by the prospect of creating a narrative report. They rarely, if ever, use them. There is a fear of the unknown and hesitancy to embark on such a lengthy project. What if they don't write the real thing? What if they don't know what to write? How do they know when they have written enough? It is not something to enter into lightly. You need to have some discipline, but there are general guidelines to follow. End of page.